The kettle had just clicked off. Steam fogged the window above the sink, softening the outlines of the street. Grandpa was buttering toast, careful and slow, like the task mattered more than it needed to. My phone buzzed against the table. 7:12 a.m. I almost didn't answer. Mornings were quieter now. I'd learned not to disturb them unless I had to. I answered anyway. Grandpa died last night. My father said. His voice was flat, efficient, like he was canceling a meeting. Funeral Friday. He left us everything. You get nothing. There was a pause. Then my mother, somewhere behind him, laughing. Finally, you're out. I didn't respond. I didn't say they had the wrong number. I didn't ask what they meant. My hand moved on its own, setting the phone down and switching to speaker. Grandpa looked up. Jam hovered in midair on the knife. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He just listened. For a moment, the only sound was my father breathing, waiting for a reaction he'd trained himself to expect. When none came, he filled the space. We'll send details, he said. Don't show up uninvited. I watched Grandpa's hand lower. He folded the napkin beside his plate, precise, almost ceremonial. Then he reached into the pocket of his cardigan and placed the envelope on the table. Cream-colored, thick, sealed. The attorney's name was printed neatly in the corner. My father was still talking, explaining logistics, ownership, certainty. Grandpa didn't interrupt. That was the part that unsettled me most. Growing up, silence in my family was never neutral. Silence meant guilt, or defeat, or something you'd pay for later. Silence was what happened after you were told you remembered wrong, felt wrong, wanted wrong. I had learned to fill it quickly. To apologize, to argue, to explain myself into exhaustion. But Grandpa had never done that. When things didn't make sense, he waited. He let them finish revealing themselves. The call ended without goodbye. I reached for the phone, but Grandpa placed his hand over mine. His skin was warm, solid. Let it sit, he said. That was all. We finished breakfast without speaking. The kettle cooled. The toast went untouched. The envelope stayed between us, an unremarkable object carrying more weight than anything else on the table. I thought of other mornings, being told I'd misunderstood, that I was dramatic, that Grandpa had said things he never said. That promises were never promises, just my imagination running ahead of me. Each time the story shifted just enough to make me doubt my footing. Each time I learned to question my own memory before questioning theirs. Grandpa cleared his plate and stood. His movements were slower than they used to be, but steady. He picked up the envelope. They think certainty is loud, he said, almost to himself. It isn't. He dialed a number I didn't recognize. When the attorney answered, Grandpa spoke calmly. No accusation. No correction. Just a request. Yes, he said. I'm with my grandchild. The call came earlier than expected. I believe it's time. He listened. Nodded once and hung up. They'll receive confirmation today, he said. Not from us. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief. Not triumph. Something quieter. Like realizing the floor had been solid all along. By afternoon, the messages started. Confusion first, then irritation. My father called again. I didn't answer. An hour later, a voicemail. You need to stop this, he said. Whatever game you're playing. Grandpa listened to it without comment. Then he deleted it. The attorney called just before evening. Everything was proceeding as documented. Notifications sent. Copies filed. The executor informed. Clear. Procedural. Unemotional. The truth didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like paperwork. That night, Grandpa went to bed early. I sat alone at the table, staring at the spot where the envelope had been. I thought I would feel vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. The next morning, my mother called. Her voice was different, lighter. Careful. There's been a misunderstanding, she said. Your father was misinformed? I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't correct her. I didn't ask for an apology. I know, I said. There was silence on the line. Not the old kind. Not the kind that pressed in on me. This one hesitated. We should talk, she said finally. Maybe, I replied, and meant it in the literal sense. Not now. Not promised. Just maybe. When I hung up, my hands weren't shaking. By Friday, the funeral plans were quietly revised. Invitations adjusted. Control redistributed. No one acknowledged the lie directly. No one named it. They didn't have to. The authority they'd relied on, certainty, volume, inheritance, had shifted elsewhere. And it hadn't needed my anger to do it. Grandpa watched from his chair by the window as the mail arrived that afternoon. Legal confirmations. Official seals. He smiled then, just a little. Truth doesn't rush, he said. It waits until there's nowhere left to stand against it. I nodded. Nothing was repaired. No relationships healed. My parents didn't suddenly see me clearly, but something fundamental had changed. They could no longer tell me what was real, and for the first time I didn't need them to.